I am going to speak about cities and equality. I will propose that the main cause for the deformation of cities is inequality. But on the other hand, a good city is a very powerful means to construct equality. It is important to keep in mind that economic development will not necessarily bring about good cities. It is rather the opposite. A good city will bring about economic development because it will attract and retain highly qualified people. It will attract investors. It will attract tourists. The most important thing we are doing in our time is creating our cities. Of the quality of those cities will depend our happiness, our well-being, our competitiveness for hundreds of years into the future. And a crucial characteristic of a good city is that it fosters equality and social integration. Many people thought that after communism failed, we could forget about equality, that we should only worry about economic development and everything else would come along. I do not think so. First, because feeling inferior or excluded is a very important obstacle to happiness. And happiness is the only thing that really matters. And second, because we have been trying to achieve more equality for more than 2,000 years, since Greece, Rome, the Judeo-Christian Revolution. But the question is, what kind of equality can we have today with market economy? I would propose that we could have at least two kinds of equality. And both of them are very much related to cities. The first one is quality of life equality, that everybody, especially children, regardless of income, should have access not only to a good education or health, but also to sports facilities, music lessons, green spaces. And the second kind of equality is what I would call democratic equality. The first article in every constitution states that all citizens are equal. If this is true, then clearly a citizen on a bicycle has the same right to road space as one in a car. And if all citizens are equal, then public good prevails over private interest. That inequality deforms cities is very evident. For example, in illegal developments, which happen in all developing country cities, where the poor are forced to go to solve their housing needs in the wrong places, without adequate public spaces. And sometimes, even legal developments, such as this in Mexico, for lower-income citizens are also very poorly located, very far away from the city centers. Mexican government now is doing everything it can to reverse this trend. Lack of sidewalks, or poor quality sidewalks, or cars on sidewalks are also an evidence of inequality. They show that people with cars are first-class citizens, while those who walk are third-class citizens. The most valuable resource a city has is road space. As Jan Gehl would say, the space between buildings. We could find oil or diamonds underground, and it would not be so valuable as road space. Here we can see how this road space is distributed in London. We give more space to pedestrians than to motor vehicles. A crucial ideological question is how to distribute road space. How to distribute road space between pedestrians, bicyclists, public transport, and private cars. I would suggest that the more democratic the city is, it uses this order: first pedestrians, then bicyclists, then public transport, and only last cars. Who decided that we should give more space to parked cars than to human beings, as we do in most of the cities in the world? We should remember, when distributing road space, that a low-income person or a child have the same right to road space as somebody with a luxury car. We should also remember that in no constitution, parking is a right. Parking is not a constitutional right. Therefore, government has no more obligation to provide parking to somebody who buys a car than it would have an obligation to provide a house to somebody who buys a refrigerator. Urban highways. Urban highways are like poisonous rivers. Human beings cannot be next to them. They cannot walk alongside them. They cannot cross them. They lower values of property all around them. But middle classes and higher income citizens want more and pressure governments for more and more and more. Because, of course, almost never an urban highway goes through a high income neighborhood. They always are put through lower income neighborhoods. Walls, gated housing developments are another evidence of inequality. They segregate people by income. One cannot go across them. They have no public parks. Clearly, they damage the city. Status considerations and inequality also lead higher income people and middle classes not to leave their cars and use public transport or bicycles. And this, of course, damages the city. Shopping malls. When shopping malls replace public space as a meeting place for people, it is a symptom that a city is ill. Clearly, in a shopping mall, one cannot see or feel the character of the city. One cannot see the mountains or the trees or the architecture. Inside the mall, one doesn't even know if it's day or night. Temperature in malls is always kept the same, regardless of whether we are in a winter in Moscow or in tropical Singapore. And with globalization, even all shops inside malls tend to be the same. Therefore, clearly, it's another problem for cities to have this kind of structures which replace public space. Therefore, inequality causes most of the city's problems. But on the other hand, a good city is a very powerful means to construct equality, and we are going to talk about this now. A city that grows in the right locations constructs equality because it makes all the city resources accessible to all: recreation, jobs, education. But for a city to grow in the right place, it is necessary for government to be able to decide how land is used, if necessary, by acquiring it, and if necessary, through eminent domain. For example, Bogota has grown illegally. Almost half of Bogota, my city, has grown illegally in the wrong places without adequate public spaces. When I was mayor in our government, we created a land banking institute, and we bought hundreds of hectares of land, voluntarily or through eminent domain. And in this way, it was possible for the city to grow in the right places with good public spaces. This was done also, for example, in Sweden or Finland since 1904. Public pedestrian space constructs equality. In a good city, rich and poor meet as equals in public spaces. Of course, the wealthy and the poor always meet, but usually separated by hierarchies. One, for example, is the apartment doorman, and the other one is the apartment's owner. If they meet in public space, they meet as equals. If a city does not have good public spaces, the poor suffer, and the wealthy leave public space. They migrate to private spaces, such as gated housing developments, shopping malls, country clubs, and the city stops accomplishing this function of promoting social integration. Therefore, it's crucial to have good public spaces. But the question is public space a frivolity in a city with much poverty? I don't think so. For example, in this picture, we see how in an illegal neighborhood, in a very steep hill in Bogota, the only little piece of level land was saved for a sports field because people thought this was very important. Actually, it is during leisure time that inequality is felt. During wartime, the high-income person or the low-income person, they go to war, they meet their friends. They are more or less equally satisfied or dissatisfied. The difference is felt when they go into their leisure time. The high-income person goes to a large home with access to gardens, has access to vacations, to country clubs, to restaurants, to cultural activities. And the low-income person and his or her children go to a small home, and their only alternative to television for their leisure time is public pedestrian space. Therefore, the first thing that a democratic city should provide low-income people is high-quality public space, parks, sports facilities, plazas, quality sidewalks. Another means to construct equality are high-quality library and school buildings in low-income neighborhoods. They are a powerful symbol that show that we have confidence in the intelligence of young people in the area. A democratic city where public good prevails over private interest also probably needs to turn some golf courses into public parks. For example, in Kibera in Nairobi, you see one of the largest and most dense slums in the world. There is a golf course right next to it. Clearly, hundreds of thousands, millions towards the future would be much happier if this golf course were to be turned into a public park. In a good city, waterfronts are never private. They are always public, have public access, and have good pedestrian infrastructure so that people can enjoy them. But there are still many thousands of kilometers of private waterfronts in many cities and their surroundings, such as in the Long Island Sound, north of New York. Clearly, the lives of millions today and towards the future would be happier if the democratic decision was made to turn all waterfronts into public spaces. In a democratic city, buses are never in a traffic jam. Because if it is true that all citizens are equal before the law, then clearly a bus with 80 passengers should have a right to 80 times more road space than a car with one. And they should go on exclusive bus lanes, which is also the most efficient way of using road space. Besides, a bus zooming by expensive cars is almost a picture of democracy in action. A good city has such great public transport that even the wealthy prefer to use it instead of using private cars, and therefore they meet as equals in public transport, wealthy and low-income citizens. And bicycles. Are protected bikeways a right, or they are just a cute architectural feature? I would say they are a right, protected bikeways in every street, unless we think that only those with access to a motor vehicle have a right to safe mobility without the risk of getting killed. A protected bikeway is also a very powerful symbol of democracy because it shows that a citizen on a $30 bicycle is equally important to one on a $30,000 car. In the future, perhaps access to green will be the most powerful, the most important means of inclusion or exclusion, because low-income citizens will have good education, will have good health, they will have access to most of the electronic gadgets that today only the higher income have access to. They will even have cars. What they will not have is access to green unless we do something about it today. In a good city, everybody, without being a member of a country club or having a country house, will be able to have access to green. Most cities of the year 2100 are yet to be built. In some developing countries, they will only grow, like in Brazilian cities, maybe 3 times, but in many African and Asian cities, maybe 10, 15, 20 times, not just because of population growth. That's maybe the least important part in some cities, but because households will be smaller, so we'll need more homes for the same amount of people, and because there will be many buildings different than housing, such as schools, universities. And in these new cities, we can do something completely different and better. We can create them with giant parks from the start, so we don't have to use eminent domain to turn country clubs of golf into parks, for example. And we should have public transport that ideally does not force people to go underground, but rather on the surface, that people can watch the city, see the natural light, the architecture, enjoy the city. We could have cities crisscrossed by hundreds of kilometers of greenways would have public transport in them, such as buses or trams. Why not think of a city where half the street, every other street would be pedestrian and bicycle only? One street bicycle and pedestrian only, the next one for motor vehicles. This is very easy to incorporate into the design of new areas yet to be developed. Why not a city with hundreds of kilometers of greenways where children will walk out of home, not into dangerous streets, but into greenways, crisscrossing the cities all over the place? In Bogota, when we were in the government, we created more than 70 kilometers of these bicycle highways. It's very easy to do them when you are just doing the city. And then the city grows around them, and they completely change the way people live. And it's a totally different way of organizing this city. It's just a matter of imagination and political decision. A different city, a different life, a better life. So I would only suggest that every detail of our city in the future should show that human beings are sacred and that human beings are equal. If there is something that makes us human beings different from other beings in the planet, is that we don't have to accept the world as it is. We can dream a better world, and we can create it, construct it. And I am sure you, young people all over the world, are going to create much better cities which will foster more equality and much more happiness. Thank you.